So welcome everyone to the March 15th, 2021 meeting of the Environmental Review Board. We have in attendance myself, David Horowitz, Ivan Alter, Ted Holmes, and Dennis Corelli, Town Environmental Coordinator, and Drew Gamels, counsel to the board. First item on the agenda tonight is approval of the minutes from February 22nd, distributed earlier. There was one typo, one comment that I had on page 4, line 39. I think there was a reference to conversations with the applicant. And the line indicates that I was involved in it. I don't think I was. I think that that line should read, stated since the last meeting, Mr. Corelli conferred with the applicant. Other than that, I have no other comments or changes. Does anybody else have anything on the minutes? No. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes is updated.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Nope.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next item is the returning application in the nature of the appeal at 55 Glendale Road, Mr. Cowell's application for tree removals. Since the last meeting where we had discussed the board's frustration with the applicant's unwillingness to provide materials that we had requested, and discussion of how to deal with that. The consensus was that the only way we could go ahead with the application in light of the lack of information would be to basically punt some of the information and require it as conditions to the permit. On that note, we asked council in consultation with Dennis to put together a draft resolution that would grant the permit as requested with several specific conditions. So we've received a draft resolution that incorporates the thoughts, makes the findings that we're required to make under the town code, sets forth expressly the conditions. And so I will, at this point, read into the record the resolution. Environmental Review Board, Town of Newcastle, March 15th, 2021. Whereas on October 14th, 2020, Joanne Sina and William Hines and Dolores Cerulli, the applicants, filed an appeal with the Town of Newcastle Environmental Review Board, ERB, with respect to the issuance of a tree removal permit on October 2nd, 2020 to Sean Cowell.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Let's just clarify the appellants.
Oh, what did I say? I'm sorry.
Applicants. I just didn't want to cause any confusion.
No, sir, those are the appellants. Yes, filed the appeal. With respect to the issuance of the tree permit on October 2nd, 2020 to Sean Cowell, the applicant, by Dennis Corelli, the Town of Newcastle Environmental Coordinator, the environmental coordinator, to permit the removal of 37 trees to cultivate fruiting plants and/or trees for personal use on property located at Glendale Road, 55 Glendale Road, Ossining, New York, 10562, known and designated on the tax map of the town of Newcastle as parcel number 79.1-1-9, the property. And whereas pursuant to section 121-14A2 of the town code, the Environmental Review Board was required to conduct a public hearing on the appeal, and based upon the standards contained in chapter 121 and the facts of the matter, to deny, grant, or grant with conditions the permit being sought. And whereas pursuant to the town code, should be added in there, in the case of an appeal, the ERB shall act as the approving authority to review the tree removal permit application and determine whether the tree removal permit should be issued. And whereas the ERB held a hearing on the appeal on November 16th, 2020 and December 21st, 2020, at which time the Hines, Ms. Cerulli, Mr. Cowell, and members of the public were given the opportunity to present arguments for and against the appeal. And whereas the ERB conducted a site walk of the premises on November 22nd, 2020, and whereas on January 25th, 2021, February 22nd, 2021, and March 15th, 2021, after reviewing and considering the written materials submitted, the ERB held further discussions regarding the appeal. And whereas, in support of the application, the ERB has considered the following materials: tree removal permit application submitted by Sean Cowell, dated September 9, 2020. Cowell - 55 Glendale tree inventory, Exhibit A to the tree removal application. Perimeter stakeout of property, Exhibit B to the tree removal application, with the general area of removal outlined. Perimeter stakeout of property with the general location of plantings outlined. Memorandum dated October 9, 2020, prepared by the Town of Newcastle Building Inspector. Appealed by Joanne Cena Hines and William Hines to the Environmental Review Board, dated October 15, 2020. Appealed by Dolores Cerulli to the Environmental Review Board, dated October 14, 2020. Letter from Hallie Flanagan Wolf, from Hallie Flanagan Wolf Gardens Limited, dated October 14, 2020. Memorandum dated November 12, 2020, prepared by the town engineer. GIS map, tree removal inventory, dated December 11th, 2020. 55 Glendale Road acreage west tree removal area. 55 Glendale Road acreage east tree removal area. Perimeter stakeout of property with locations of trees to be removed. And letter from Stephen D. Domizo, Red Oak Tree Service Incorporated, dated February 8th, 2021. Whereas the proposed action is a type 2 action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, and as such, no further environmental review is required. And whereas the ERB is fully familiar with the property, has duly considered all submissions, including materials submitted by the applicant and town staff, and the public, is familiar with the record of proceedings, and has considered all issues raised by the appellant, the applicant, and the public with respect to the appeal. And whereas the ERB has considered all relevant portions and provisions of Chapter 121 of the Town Code, including Section 121-7, and determined that the issuance of a tree removal permit is consistent with the factors and considerations set forth therein as conditioned by this resolution. Now, therefore, be it resolved that with respect to the permits, the ERB finds and determines as follows. 1, the ERB acknowledges the applicant's right to plant garden crops, vineyard crops, fruits, and plants on his property for his personal use. The applicant has proposed to plant the aforementioned on 2.1 acres of the property, and in accordance therewith, to remove 37 trees. 2, pursuant to Section 121-6 of the Town Code, and based on calculations prepared by Mr. Corelli and set forth in the original October 2, 2020 permit, the applicant is required to replace a total of 58 inches of diameter. Based on this diameter measurement, the proposed project requires a total replacement of 23 trees. The applicant intends to plant 9 fruit trees and 50 to 70 blueberry shrubs and 200 to 300 grapevines. 3, under the Town Code, the applicant is allowed to substitute a total of 8 2-gallon size shrubs to replace 1 tree. 50% of the replacement trees shall be canopy trees, parentheses, mature height greater than 40 feet, close parentheses, and 25% must be understory trees, paren, mature height less than 40 feet, close paren. The applicant satisfies the understory tree requirement by planting the fruit trees and the shrubs. However, the applicant's proposal fails to satisfy the canopy tree requirement. Accordingly, 12 canopy trees are required under the tree replacement provisions of Section 121-6. 4, the applicant is planting more than 10 replacement trees, including replacement shrubs and other crops on the property. 5, under Town Code Section 121-5A5, the applicant is required to submit a completed tree replacement plan based on the tree replacement requirements set forth in Section 121-6. The ERB has determined that it is not impracticable or impossible to replace the trees on the premises, and in fact, the applicant is proposing to replace a portion of the trees to be removed with shrubs and crops. The ERB finds that tree replacement is warranted. The applicant shall submit a tree replacement plan to confirm, identify, and location. Should that be identity
It should be, yep, I just made a note of that.
instead of, okay, to confirm the identity and location of the proposed replacement trees, shrubs, and crops to ensure compliance with the Town Code and this resolution. 6, there are no possible or practicable alternatives to the proposed removal. The applicant is permitted to plant garden crops, vineyard crops, fruits, and plants on his property for his personal use. The applicant must remove multiple trees to clear space anywhere on the property to plant the aforementioned vegetation. 7, pursuant to Chapter 108A-5I of the Town Code, excuse me, the removal of trees and vegetation over an area of approximately 2.1 acres for home gardening, which will include the growing of flowers, vegetables, and other plants primarily used by the property owner and his family, is exempt from the review of Chapter 108 A, stormwater management and erosion and sediment control. Accordingly, no stormwater pollution prevention plan is required. 8, the proposed removal and proposed plantings, if maintained, will not have a significant negative effect on erosion potential and drainage patterns in the vicinity of the proposed tree removal. The applicant will be planting various crops and plants in the tree removal areas, which will mitigate any potential negative. There's a typo in there, it should be delete the S in negative. Any potential negative impacts to erosion potential and drainage if successful. 9, the proposed tree removal will not affect the critical root zone of trees to remain in the vicinity of the proposed tree removal. 10, the proposed tree removal, including the removal of invasive plants, dead trees, and brush, will improve the appearance of the area. 11, the proposed removal will not have a significant negative effect on the growth of existing adjacent vegetation, so long as the applicant is diligent in monitoring for invasive species and actively completing their removal as part of the maintenance of the subject area of the property. 12, there is no evidence in the record that the proposed removal will have a significant negative effect on property values of nearby properties. 13, the proposed removal will not have a significant negative effect on the health, safety, or welfare of the residents of Newcastle or its neighboring communities. 14, the proposed removal will not have a significant negative effect on solar access to nearby properties. 15, the proposed removal will not have a significant negative effect on wildlife habitat. 16, the applicant has not, I think should be has not proposed. Applicant has not proposed to remove any species listed on the New York State list of endangered trees or trees of special concern. 17, the trees are not located near existing or proposed improvements. 18, the applicant is proposing to plant more than 10 replacement trees and shrubs pursuant to Town Code Section 121-10B. The planting of 10 or more trees shall require a monitoring plan for at least 5 years and a maintenance bond of 35% of the cost of the plants and labor to install replacement trees for at least 5 years pursuant to Section 121-10B of the Town Code. The length of said monitoring program and maintenance bond shall be determined by the Environmental Review Board. This has been the town's practice with other applications and is consistent with the Town Code. 19, the maintenance and monitoring of the proposed replacement trees and shrubs is essential to ensure
and minimize
any potential negative effect on erosions or drainage patterns, should be an S in there, that would result from the tree removal. It is also important the vegetation is well maintained to prevent any negative impact to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighboring residents. 20, the ERB has considered the applicant's arguments that a monitoring plan is not required. The ERB has considered the applicant's position and finds that the applicant is required to plant replacement trees as such replacement is possible on the premises. The ERB finds that the understory tree replacement requirements are satisfied by planting a variety of trees, shrubs, and crops on the premises. As the applicant is planting more than 10 trees, shrubs, and crops to replace the trees to be removed, a monitoring plan is required. The ERB has considered the arguments presented by the applicant and reviewed this matter with town staff to reach its determination. Be it resolved that the appeal submitted by Joanne Cena and William Hines and Dolores Cerulli is hereby denied to the extent it seeks to have the ERB deny Mr. Sean Cowell's request for a tree removal permit on property located at 55 Glendale Road, Ossining, New York, 10562, known and designated on the tax map of the town of Newcastle as parcel number 79.1-1.9, 1-9. Be it further resolved that the ERB, as the approving authority under section 121-14 of the town code, should be in there, hereby grants the tree removal permit upon the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall complete all tree removal work authorized and or required by this resolution no later than 2 years from the date of the filing of this resolution. The ERB may grant an extension to this 2-year period, provided that an application for such extension is submitted at least 21 days before the expiration of the tree removal permit. The tree removal permit shall expire upon completion of the tree removal. Prior to commencing any tree removal, the applicant shall submit a tree replacement plan to the environmental coordinator. The tree replacement plan shall identify areas where existing trees are to be preserved and where proposed replacement trees, shrubs, and crops are to be planted. The tree replacement plan shall also include a list of all replacement trees, shrubs, and crops that identifies the species, paren, by common and botanical name, close paren, size, and quantity. The tree replacement plan shall be prepared by a RLA and subject to approval by the environmental coordinator. 3, prior to any tree removal, the applicant shall submit a maintenance bond of 35% of the cost of the plants and labor to install replacement trees for at least 5 years. Said maintenance bond shall be subject to approval by the environmental coordinator and town council. 4, prior to any tree removal, the applicant shall submit a 5-year tree monitoring plan for the proposed replacement trees, shrubs, and crops that includes a detailed cost estimate for determining the required 35% maintenance bond. The estimate shall include plant material costs, herbivory and or perimeter fencing, labor and other materials required to install required mitigation measures. 5, the monitoring plan shall be prepared by a professional and or competent person, e.g. registered landscape architect, American Society of Horticultural Science certified horticulturalist, a certified professional horticulturalist, the Cornell University Cooperative Extension Master Gardener Program volunteer, and shall be subject to approval by the environmental coordinator. 6, the property and the replacement trees, shrubs, and crops shall be well maintained at all times. Any dead vegetation shall be removed and replaced with a living tree, shrub, and or crop planting. 7, within 6 months of tree removal, the applicant shall be required to plant 12 canopy trees as required under section 121-6 of the town code. 8, the applicant, at a minimum, shall install deer fencing to surround the planting areas to prevent herbivory and deter wildlife from lingering and or utilizing the plantings as a preferred feeding area. Other acceptable forms of herbivory protection for use shall include dedicated shrub and tree protection, e.g. wire cages, netting, mesh guards, trunk wrap, and or ultrasonic deer repellers, Within 10 days after installing or establishing the herbivory protection structure or system, the applicant shall contact the environmental coordinator and arrange for an inspection. A herbivory protection structure or system shall be installed before any trees, shrubs, or crops are planted or stored outside. 9, all fruits, vegetables, flowers, grass, and other plants grown on the property shall be used for personal on-site use only. No commercial sales of any cultivated product shall be permitted. 10, in accordance with section 64-6C of the town code, the use of pesticides and herbicides shall be forbidden. 11, if agricultural activities are no longer pursued in the area of the property that is subject to this tree removal permit, the applicant shall be required to plant 11 understory trees as required under section 121-6 of the town code pursuant to a tree replacement plan prepared by a RLA and approved by the environmental coordinator. That's the text of the resolution. I guess at this point, the questions, do any of the board members have questions, comments, things that they'd like to discuss with respect to the draft resolution? Gentlemen?
I do not.
Nothing further here either, John.
Ted, anything?
Yeah, nope, I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
John, I do have one thing to add. For condition number 7, I believe we should clarify that the 12 canopy trees can be planted, in my opinion, anywhere on the premises, but the board can make that decision. It just, the condition doesn't specify where they have to go, and I'm concerned that might be confusing.
I believe that they would have to go in the removal area somewhere, wouldn't they, Dennis?
Well, I guess that's something that we never specifically discussed, because I know that there was a lot of moving around 12 point whatever acres where various things could be moved. And I would think that, you know, in consideration of that acreage as an alternative for looking to move this entire operation, you know, there might be some consideration for that. If for whatever reason, these canopy trees can't be planted or shouldn't be planted, or maybe even inhibit yield or production of whatever, you know, Mr. Cowell is envisioning. I mean, it seems a reasonable consideration that if they're placed at another location on the parcel, which I know is relatively large, relatively speaking, in consideration of his proposal, it doesn't seem out of the ordinary or inconsistent, you know, with really the entirety of the property. So, I mean, that's, you know, the function is not to, you know, serve as any complement to this, you know, agricultural type proposal. So I would think, you know, alternative locations wouldn't be unsuitable.
Well, shouldn't it bear some relation to the trees that are being removed, since it's replacement for those trees?
There is an argument for that as well, yes.
So should we maybe just make it an addition to paragraph 7, that the location of those trees would be shown on a replacement plan that's subject to the environmental coordinator's approval?
Absolutely, and I can link it back up to the previous condition that talks about the tree replacement plan, which is condition number 5.
Okay. Does that make sense to everybody?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Then hearing no other questions or discussions.
Mr. Rosenblum, it's John Cowell. I'd like to comment if possible.
I don't know that that's appropriate at this point, Sean, to tell you the truth.
No comment whatsoever?
We,
I don't know. I don't know when would be another, when do I have another chance to?
we've had substantial comment, discussion, back and forth with you on a number of occasions at this point. I think that board is ready to make a determination. I think to the extent that there are
I
questions.
would like to comment on the draft if I mean.
I think that to the extent you have comments about the specifics in the conditions in the permit.
Well, actually, what I do want to comment on requires, you know, the whole board to hear. I was just, it actually affects some of the provisions of the draft. So I was just very much hoping to speak while we have this meeting going on now, instead of waiting another month.
Well, we're not going to, I mean, this is the resolution that's on the table. And I think that, as I say, we've had plenty of conversation about this. To the extent that there are questions about the details of the permit and how it's to be carried out, you know, those discussions you can have with Dennis after the meeting, and you know, when he goes ahead.
Well, I mean, this is still in draft form, is it not? I mean, I thought we would be able to talk about what's in this document.
It's for the board to discuss, not necessarily with you.
Well, no problem. I'd just like to give you my input. You know, I feel like that's fair, at least, to just give you my, of course, you don't have to listen to me. I just want to give you the input while I have the opportunity. May I have that opportunity, please?
I don't know that it's appropriate, Sean. Thank you.
Okay. It sounds like you don't even need me then if I can't say anything. I mean, I would like to speak to the substance of the draft.
No, I don't think it's necessary at this point, Sean. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hearing no other questions from the board or items for discussion by the board, at this point, I guess I'll request a motion to approve the draft resolution as modified verbally in the course of this discussion.
I would certainly like to comment if anyone would like to hear it. I mean, I feel like I should be afforded that opportunity. I did wait quite, it's been 6 months.
Mr. Cowell, you've asked and I've responded to you.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
So do I have a motion to approve the resolution as drafted, discussed, and modified pursuant to our discussion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion is carried. The permit is approved with conditions. As I mentioned, you know, Mr. Cowell, Dennis will be in touch with you. You will be in touch with Dennis to the extent you have questions, comments, you should raise them with him. We appreciate everybody's involvement.
John, just so you know, what I'm going to do is tomorrow I'll go and I'll incorporate all the revisions that we've made. I will send you a draft, I will send you the final version for your signature. And then if you just sign it and get it back to Dennis, and we'll get it filed and go create the permit from there.
Great. Perfect. Okay. That's it.
Can I just ask the question when this will be available for online review?
Which, the permit?
Yes, and all the conditions, of course.
I'm not sure. I would guess, once I get it to you, Dennis, how long will it take for it to be made public?
It just gets filed, I believe, at that point, when it's approved, stamped, filed with the town clerk, and then it's, you know, obviously available, you know, FOIL request at that point.
Okay.
Next week? Does that mean next week or?
When we get it, we get it. Oh, sorry, Dennis.
No, I just, I don't have a
Question.
specific answer to that question. It's, you know, it's not going to be, you know, months from now. It's just as this process unfolds. And again, that's just the resolution of conditions, you know, for tonight. That was read tonight, I should say.
And we will get a final copy over to Sean, and Joanne, we will work on getting you a copy as well, once it's finalized, as the applicant and the appellants.
I was going to say, yeah, that, you know, since the Hineses are parties, they would get copies directly, wouldn't they, without having to make a FOIL request?
We will send it directly to the Hines. We will send it directly to Mr. Cowell as well,
Okay, and Mrs. Cerulli also?
and Mrs. Cerulli as well.
Okay, that works. Thank you.
Great. Okay. That being the last item on our agenda for tonight, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
We'll make
Motion
that
to
motion as
adjourn.
well.
Second? All in favor?
Second. Aye.